the site?
So just a quick overview of this presentation. I will go over the day-to-day operations of our stormwater utility, just give you a quick update on Dover Ditch, the living shoreline project that we have ongoing, and then a review of some of our planned projects for FY26, and then some future efforts that we're looking at either undertaking or implementing in the future. So a quick overview of our operations. The graph that you see is the different diameter size stormwater pipes that we have throughout our system. So you can see they are fairly large compared to potable water mains. And then some statistics that we have. We have 4 major outfalls within our service area, 37 minor outfalls, 7 weirs, 9 structures, 12.4 miles of gravity stormwater mains, 81 manholes, and 577 inlets. And all of that is managed and maintained in conjunction with our distribution system. Our staff dedicated to stormwater is 1 utility worker, and then shared salaries of 2 other workers, including a supervisor. So about 2 people altogether to manage all of this. We do have some overlapping qualifications from our distribution team, so they help out where they can. But we are very small compared to other municipalities, so we have a lot to maintain, but not a lot of workforce to do so. So it is a priority for us. And when it comes to the regulatory requirements for stormwater, the EPA amended the Clean Water Act in 1987 to include NPDES, or non-pollution discharge elimination systems, in their permits. And then in Florida, that is our primacy agency to implement that is the FDEP, and they require us to, even further on the county level, work with Palm Beach County to have an MS4, and that is a municipal separate storm sewer system. And so there's about 41 different organizations within our MS4. We all partner up to do what we can to reduce discharges, eliminate illicit discharges, improve the quality of water that we're discharging to the river. And all of that, the reasoning behind that comes from the fact that the Loxahatchee River is impaired. I'm sure you all know this, but it's impaired for E. coli, fecal coliform, enterococci, chlorophyll A, and total phosphorus. And so all of these organizations that are around the Loxahatchee River, we partner up, we're required to partner up, but we partner up, and we are required to annually submit reports on all of our stormwater system that does discharge to the river, and then different efforts that we implement to reduce any type of pollution to the river. And the way that we do that is through predominantly inspections of our stormwater system, making sure that there's no impediment of flow, that there's no pipes that are damaged that would stop the flow or cause damage to the environment through the infiltration of silt that would be carried to the river. And for an FY26, our stormwater utility budget was $734,169. You can see in the bottom graph, though, that that's the operational side of it is almost double compared to FY25. And the reason you see that high cost is mostly Dover Ditch. So Dover Ditch was $304,000. We budgeted $315,000. All those costs will be incurred in FY26. So that's why you see that large increase in cost for this year. But then that purple bar you see would be the FDEP grant that we got for the project. So overall, if you try to compare our stormwater utility budget to our water fund budget, it's drastically smaller. It is something that we're working towards and doing as much as we can, finding creative ways to operate with reduced costs to make sure that we can maintain our system and implement different initiatives to reduce pollution and educate the residents on the importance of stormwater management. Sorry. Dover Ditch Living Shoreline, you all are aware of this project. It's a phenomenal project. We are almost done with it. It was 50% FDEP grant funded, with the remaining a 60-40 split between us and the town of Jupiter. So we're covering 60%, the town of Jupiter is covering 40%. The contractor for that project is Blue Terra. The contract value was $304,289.80, and the engineer of record was Chenmore and Associates. The stabilization of the entire canal is complete, and plantings will occur. Right now it says after December 15th, but they'll actually occur December 22nd and 23rd of this year. And it's happening a little bit later just due to the king tides. We had to wait for the tides to go down so that the plantings would not die due to an inundation of water. And because that project did come in under budget, we budgeted $315,000 for it. That was the 50% match requested from FDEP. So there's a difference about $7,000 there. And we did go to FDEP and ask that they honor their original 50% contribution. So it really does come out to about, I think, 52 or 53% that they're contributing, which is only about like $3,500 more, but for our stormwater utility, it can mean a lot. That's another swale that could be regraded or something. So it's important for us to find cost savings where we can, and that was one that we identified, so we were able to obtain that. And we are hoping to wrap that project up by the end of the year. So if you all haven't had a chance to go out and look at it, I encourage you to do so. It's very beautiful. That top picture, one thing I wanted to point out is that is actually upstream of the weir, and it was outside of the project limits, but we noticed during construction and after heavy rain that on the sides of that canal is what we call fabriform or geotextile. It's like a concrete with holes in it, and there's supposed to be sand underneath. But the rain has caused erosion underneath that fabriform. So you can kind of even see it in the canal there, where there's an immense amount of sedimentation that's building up outside of the fabriform. And the contractor, they've been doing such a great job that they came in with still, I think it was $50,000 in their undefined conditions allowance that we didn't use. And so we're at the point in the project where we feel confident and comfortable with using those funds to now go upstream of the project boundary and remove that fabriform and stabilize that bank shore to reduce sedimentation that would be further carried down the canal and possibly out to the river. So it was kind of additional work that we were able to incorporate into this project and use FDEP funding and assistance for to further enhance that canal for work that would have had to have been done down the road anyways. So that was kind of also a benefit of this project. Going through some planned projects for FY26. So swale reclamations, we have 3 scheduled for this year, including Dover Circle, Garden Street, and North Dover Road. We had started with 3 last year, and they were very successful. Swales are super, super important to our stormwater management system. They're natural ways for water to be filtered and carried. It keeps it off the road, so you're not getting that runoff from the road as much. Because the water's not traveling down the road, it's traveling in the swale. But if you drive around Tequesta, you'll notice that there's not a lot of swales. A lot of the yards are either flat or there's plantings in the yard, so it becomes kind of challenging for that storm water to infiltrate into the ground and then travel eventually to either a catch basin or out to the river. And so we're starting this program called Save the Swales, where we are working towards identifying areas of high flooding, where we can go in and regrade some of those swales and work with the property owners to do so and enhance the ability for those swales to treat the water and infiltrate into the ground. One of the successes that we had was Fairview last year. One of the property owners down the street, they were so happy with the results of the swale regrading and the reduction in flooding that they asked if we could do their property. Obviously, it's kind of hard to go into a property when there's not a lot of flooding now, but then they offered that they would even be willing to pay for it if we educated them, helped them. So that's one thing that we're really proud of and we want to continue to do and work towards. Most of our swale regrading does happen in-house. In the simpler areas, we do have staff. We purchased a level that we can shoot grades at, so we're making sure that we're grading the swales properly, doing it the right way so we don't have to go back later and doing that swale reclamation. And we also did find out at one of the properties that we went and regraded, one of the property owners did have artificial turf in the right of way. And so we went in and we spoke with them. We worked with them to remove it from the right of way and replant sod. But one thing I wanted to point out, pardon me one second. So when we talk about artificial turf, we talk about how it's advertised as porous and impervious, and to some extent that's true. But then when we went to this one property and we were removing it, we actually had to get our Bobcat excavator out because the dirt formed rock underneath the turf. And so water's not getting through that rock easily. So there's no stormwater treatment that would be happening there. And it was just kind of amazing for us to see because we've never really gone into a property to remove turf like that and found it so compacted underneath where that water it's not going, it's just traveling off the property. So it's a big issue, but we are working towards working with residents and fixing some of the grading that we have around the village. It is a phased approach, and like I said, we're targeting areas of high flooding. But that is one of our projects that we have planned. Another one is stormwater pipelining. When we went to the November 3rd workshop, council workshop, we went over 5 project areas that we had around the village where stormwater pipes were identified as being older, possibly some mechanical integrity issues that we were identifying, and so they were called out to be lined. Lining is the most cost-effective form of rehabbing the pipes compared to going in and fully replacing them. It can add 50 to 60 years of the life to the pipe if we go in and line it, but you really have to do it in a preventative maintenance, because if it's already collapsed, you can't go in there and line it, you have to replace it. But when we went to council, we did identify 5 areas. 2 of those had to be removed just due to cost, which was Gulfview Drive and River Drive. They came in some of the highest cost to go in and line those pipes. So we did take those off, but we did add North Cypress Drive because there is a current pipe failure there that we believe we can still go in and line. So we're gonna go ahead and go do those. We are bringing those to the February council meeting for a one purchase order for a contractor to go in and do all of them. It reduces mobilization costs because they're already in the area, so they go and just line all of them in one shot. So we budget about $100,000 each year for stormwater pipelining. With these 4 areas, it comes to about $85,000. So we're maintaining about $15,000 in reserves in case we have any emergencies later on in the fiscal year that we would have to go in and address. And then last on the list is our stormwater pond inspections. Ponds are critical in retaining water, especially in high rain events, and making sure that there's not water backing up and flooding some streets. So we've never gone into our staff's knowledge, we've never gone in and actually inspected these infalls and outfalls to these ponds. And so we plan to go and do so. Because of the cost of the stormwater pipelining, it's going to be a little bit challenging for us to do some of these inspections, but we have opted for a more internal approach. So we have a camera that can be put underwater. So we'll go in and try to inspect these first in-house. And then if we identify some blockage in those infalls or outfalls, we'll have to hire a diver to come in and clear those out. And then last but not least, some future efforts. So something that's near and dear to me is education and outreach with the public. I think you can avoid a lot of issues by going out and talking to the public before anything happens, because a lot of people don't even know about stormwater, just like they don't know about drinking water. So if you go out and have conversations, it saves time and money. So we plan on increasing our efforts related to public education outreach, including the FSA WWA Drop Savers poster contest. So that's for grades K through 12, and it's getting kids involved in understanding of water conservation. So it starts at the younger level, and we would love to get the EAC involved in that contest as well in selecting the winners. We'd like to have a big event. We usually bring to council the winners, and that will happen in May. TQuest has never participated in that program, but it's a great program, so we would love to get you all involved as we get it kicked off. Another thing is leveraging the EPA WaterSense and Stormwater Smart outreach tools. Why create the wheel when there's already a wheel out there? And then trying to really promote some of our national observance days, including the National Stormwater Day, World Water Week, Fix a Leak Week, Drinking Water Week, Imagine a Day Without Water, National Water Quality Month, Source Water Protection Week, and Groundwater Awareness Week. So all of these are opportunities for us to engage with the public and get them educated, get them informed, and get them involved at the end of the day in water conservation and stormwater protection. Another thing that's included is our right-of-way ordinance revisions. I'm not going to touch too much on this, but I know that it's a hot topic right now, and we have a group of staff working on those ordinance revisions and helping us protect the right-of-way. And then stormwater inlet drain outreach. This is one of the things that Jay and I talked about recently, because I know we've been trying to discuss different ways to identify the stormwater drains. We have the little buttons right now, but sometimes they can be missed or fall off. And so trying to do some research and creative thinking, something that I came up with that maybe it's been discussed before, I don't know. And we'd have to look into the financial impacts and everything, but wrapping the drains, and not wrapping them like covering them, but like a car wrap type of thing where you cut out the circle so then they can kind of pop out more, whether we wrap them in blue or put a message on them. You'd still have to have the grates and everything, but it's something that we could look into. Another thing would be adopt a drain program. Typically during stormwater events, drains get clogged, and that's when you have leaves and everything fall into the drain. They impede the flow, and they can eventually cause nutrient loading with the breakdown of the leaves and nutrients and everything going into the river. So having somebody responsible or an organization responsible for that drain, it increases ownership, increases awareness, so it's a great program. And then car washing and yard waste campaigns. A lot of people don't think, like, I'm not going in specifically dumping something down the drain, but if I'm washing my car, those chemicals are eventually going to make it to a storm drain and out to the river, and just making sure we're using environmentally friendly car washing chemicals, or making sure we're not dumping our yard waste out into the street or blowing it into a storm drain. And then last but not least, research and statistic-based decision making. I had previously come from the town of Jupiter, and they have a very robust program with stormwater monitoring. So they use what's called DataSons, and they put them out in the rivers, and they partner a lot with Waxahachie River District to publicize those results. And I think that would be a great opportunity for us to start looking at some of those results and making informed decisions. A great instance that it could have been implemented is Dover Ditch. We could have gotten pre-living shoreline nutrient turbidity data, and then gotten it after the fact and seen like if there's an actual improvement to that outfall, just to make sure like whatever we're doing is actually making a difference. So that's something that's much into the future, but definitely something on our radar that we want to implement. That's all I have. I will take any questions.
Wait.
No questions. Thank you. That was very informative. I got a couple of questions. So I think you half answered it at the end, one of them. You mentioned the reports that you do. Was it for the Waxahachie River District? That's what all the
MS4 program, the MPDES. We're talking about?
I don't know.
We have an annual for our stormwater utility.
Those details are hard to remember.
No, you're good. For our stormwater utility, we have an annual report that we do, and so there's a lot that goes into it, like street sweeping and the amount of stuff that we take off the roads, inspections of our outfalls. There's a lot of stormwater components. Education is in there. So that report is sent annually. We send it to Mockroos, which is a consulting firm, and they're the responsible party for combining all the reports from the 41 organizations and sending that to FDEP.
As part of that report, is there any testing of the water that's being sent back out?
No, there's not. Predominantly what's included is like a calculation of nutrient reduction. So the amount of street sweeping, the material that's removed, there's an estimation of pollution reduction associated to the weight that's removed, but there's no actual physical testing.
Okay. It's similar to what you were saying about it'd be nice to know if the efforts were doing something. You know, we had done educational stuff and ordinance work with fertilizer, and it'd be nice to know, has phosphorus percentages gone down, stuff like that. Yeah,
it's awesome. It would be great to know, but the equipment is expensive. So that's something we could budget for in the future. It's something that I'm very passionate about because I like making sure that the decisions that we're doing are like data-based. But it also takes manpower to do that. And so it's great to think about doing, but then to realistically implement it is another story. So it is something we're working towards, but I don't know what the timeline will be on that.
Okay, and then the second question, you mentioned the re-swaling. And I'm happened to be on a street that was re-swaled a couple of years ago, I think. And I noticed that after the re-swaling was done, several property owners came in and just dumped a bunch of gravel and leveled off their swales to create, I guess, more parking area. I know you're not enforcement, but do you work with enforcement in any way to
So I think that's kind of the initiative and purpose behind the right-of-way ordinance revisions. Right now, the way that the ordinance is laid out, it can be very confusing to residents because there's different stipulations in different areas of the ordinance. And so the efforts to revise them or to kind of condense everything and make it very understandable from a resident's point of view to know, oh, I'm not supposed to do something like that. And then to have code be able to enforce it and be able to point directly at where it says in the ordinance you're not supposed to be doing something like that. So I think that's the first step, is making sure our ordinance is revised to outline all of those requirements, and then enforcement after that.
Thank you very much for coming to present. That was very helpful and informative. My only question is for an educational for myself. The term pond, what does that mean, like at these locations?
So they are ponds where, like, I don't have a picture of it. I could follow up with you and show you where some of the ponds are, but they're just they're areas of retention for water, just scattered throughout the village. They're smaller.
Like these ones that are listed on the streets. I'm familiar with those streets, but I'm not familiar with the site of a pond. So.
Yeah, they're like adjacent, so they are a little bit farther away, and then there's like a pipe that goes from like a catch basin there over to the pond. And so what we're worried about, we own that pipe that takes the water and puts it into that pond. And so we're making sure that where the pipe discharges to, that's clear, so that it's not impeding flow and causing flooding on the street. And then also that there's not any like delay in the water going down and damage to the pipe that could be caused by the sediment loading.
How often are those checked for clogging?
So from our staff's knowledge, they've never been inspected. And there's some areas where there could possibly be concerns about the mechanical integrity of the actual pipe itself. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, the outfall, because where it goes into the pond, you would assume would be the most damaged. So they're looking at that outfall for both mechanical integrity and for impediment of flow.
Thank you.
So the golf course considers the ponds to be golf water hazards, correct? Are they on the golf course?
Some of them, I believe, are around the golf course, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So who owns so they own the land upon which the pond is located, but you own the pipe, we own the pipe?
We own the pipe that discharges into it.
Yeah.
I would have to look in each specific scenario. We do own a couple of retention areas throughout the village that are ours, but in the most case, they are like privately owned ponds. We're not going in and doing any dredging of the ponds or anything like that. It's just the outfall of the pipe.
In regard to Dover Ditch, is there a way to get that name changed? It just seems outdated, the ditch.
Yeah.
I guess you'd have to deal with Jupiter as well, but
Yes.
in regard to what you showed, I thought when this was in the preliminary stage, I saw more drawings where the water flow meandered more.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to see in the picture, but the bottom picture, so that top picture that was actually pre-construction, and it's a video. I don't know if we can play it or not. But then the bottom two pictures are the meandering. So it's kind of hard to see, but if you look closer, you can see where it actually meanders. And then it'll be even easier to see once the plantings are done. So that bottom left picture where you see the rock ends and it almost looks like dirt, that's where planting's gonna go. And so once the plantings are there, it'll be a little bit easier to even more see the meander. But it's still kind of there. You see it more at low tide, but if you go out there, you can see it even more.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about the pipe lining.
Yes.
You had mentioned you're trying to line all the water pipes throughout the village of what is needed.
So the way that we prioritize them is first based on age. Okay. So we have the records for almost all of the pipes that are in the system. There are some that are unknown, but we can go in and inspect them and look at what the condition is. Okay. But most of them are lined based on age because they have a useful life in them. Right. And so we start with that list and we select a couple that we think we can do within a year based on price because we just don't have a lot of money for it. So we'll pick some that we believe that we could realistically do. But then if we have a pipe that comes in that may be damaged but still able to line, that automatically goes to the top of the list to prevent any further failure that would cause replacement, which is a lot more costly.
Sure. So you brought up Gulfview Drive, and then there was another road that you said.
Fairview West.
Fairview West.
That pond is right behind my house.
Oh, okay.
So you
right.
know
Yeah.
what they look like.
So were they?
And it is part.
So the projects for the pipeline,
West.
yeah, that's
So
for the pond inspections, and it shouldn't say stormwater pond inspections. It should say inlet and outlet inspections because we're not inspecting the pond.
Right, inlet and outlet
Yes.
inspections. So those two roads you mentioned were too costly to do right now, but are they in dire need of it?
No, they've just reached the useful life. So when we bump one off the list, it's not because it needs it right now.
Okay.
The pipelining is preventative. So we're going in before there's any damage done to extend the useful life another 50 to 60 years, instead of waiting for it to fail and having to go in and replace it.
So Gulfview and Fairview, they're still on the list?
Yes, they'll be next on the list. And we might get to, so the end of the year, once we get closer to the end of the year and we feel confident that no further pipes will all of a sudden fail, we'll go ahead and try to finish lining as much pipe as we can with the remaining funds for that fiscal year. We just don't want to expend all of them right in the start of the fiscal year and then all of a sudden have an emergency that we don't have money for.
And you're doing this, Allison, throughout the village, right?
Correct.
Oh, okay, thank you.
One question. The stormwater inlet drain outreach programming, is that current or is that something you're looking to do in the future?
So we currently do have the buttons on the inlet drains, but Jay and I have been talking about possibly different ways to identify some of those drains because it's not always obvious. So we are looking at creative ways, and if anybody has any suggestions, we would love to hear them as well. There's just a lot of things operationally we have to take into consideration. One is the cost of maintenance and the cost to implement. And then any maintenance costs and any like liability. So I know like Jay and I had talked about signs, like putting like a little footer sign, but if somebody's walking and trips over it, all of a sudden that's a liability. So that's why I'd come up with the idea of wrapping the grate to kind of make it pop and stand out. But I don't know if you have any ideas.
So we do. With regard to the yard waste, do you reach out to contractors, landscape companies? Because there's probably, at least in Tequesta Country Club, probably 10 that I see, and they're working 5 days a week, 6 days a week. You could hit a lot with just talking to those 10 companies versus trying to have an outreach effort toward all everyone who lives in that area.
Awesome. Targeted.
Is that something you're doing, or
no? This is all planned.
All planned. Okay.
Yeah, all planned.
Right. Got it. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone, so much.
Information and the delivery of it.
All right. Next on the agenda, consent agenda. This is the minutes from our last meeting, November 12th. Does it look good? Someone want a motion?
Make a motion to accept the minutes of November
12th,
12th,
2025.
2025.
Second?
I second. Go ahead, Wayne.
Go ahead.
Wade.
Second.
Wade.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
No nays, motion carries. Old business. Jay, Oyster Habitat Creation Program discussion. Did you have certain things that you wanted to update us?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a follow-up. I did reach out to Tom Twyford, who's the presenter, and he was very open to having an oyster straining event in Tequesta sometime in 2026. He offered to, of course, bring all of the recycled oysters and all the materials, and he said he would even give, like a 15, 20, 30-minute introduction. And so I think that's a really good opportunity to, I think you guys have talked about having an event in 2026. I think that would really bring out a lot of people. It's something that kids can do, families can do. And my thoughts were we could hold it at possibly Jay Lona. We've got a really good relationship with Peter DeWitt. So we could do it there, or we could do it at one of our parks, Tequesta Park, Constitution, Remembrance Park. So I'll kind of put it in your court, whether or not you think it's worth pursuing and having that event. And then also, if so, which location do you think would be best?
Okay.
All right. Do you want to?
Anybody passionate about it?
Your thoughts? Go.
I mean, I think it's a great event. I think it's just a matter of, how do we organize it, put it together, and using the least amount of funds and the greatest amount of awareness. That's it. Yeah. Of course.
I also forgot to mention that Councilman Rick Sartori was the one that kind of made that initial introduction, and he's very interested in continuing that. So kind of could be a partnership between council and the EAC, which I think would be nice.
I think it's a great idea. I kind of would lean towards suggesting that it be held at one of our own parks so that we have acknowledgement of what we have in Tequesta. And also a suggestion or thought is sometimes it is very effective to be able to engage directly with the community that would be participating in this. So yes, it would certainly be good to have it on village-wise, but also perhaps we could approach and at least make an extra effort to let the communities know that are on the water about this event. Possibly even do mini events of that in those communities. How many communities do we have that are residential waterside? We have Tequesta Country Club.
Everything on Beach Road.
The
Church.
I don't know.
80 Lane.
Behind the church is on the water. Those homes are all on the water on that.
Bay Harbor.
Bay Harbor.
There's quite a
I
few.
don't know the exact number, but
Yeah.
Country Club would be the big one.
Yeah.
Right.
An option would be to have it at one of the little mini pocket parks on the water there, if the Country Club would be open to it.
That's my input. I love the idea.
Anything? No? No.
Go forward.
So, I don't know, I kind of like the idea of having it in conjunction with the food truck things that we have, like, what is it? January, February, March,
No, first.
Friday evening.
Oh, the Friday.
First Friday of the month from May? I forgot what, no, it's.
I thought it was during the season.
It's during-
Yeah,
Yeah, during
season.
season, okay, October maybe, first Friday of the month, October through May,
Is
something
it?
like that.
Is it that? Really?
I don't think they've had them yet. Isn't it January?
Yeah, I think one of them got rained out, and then we also had that country event, so I think that kind of
Yeah.
took place of that.
Yeah.
And then we're having the Christmas event, I think, this Friday, so that's probably taking place of it, but probably in January. That's a good idea, Brad. I will talk to Parks and Rec to figure out if they think that it could happen simultaneous or not.
That's a lot of visibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that go to these.
It's a good time to get people interested in that idea because you've got a captive audience there. So that's a cool idea. Let me just run it by Parks and Rec first.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
If we can't do that, are we thinking like a weekend event?
Yeah, if not that, probably like a Saturday morning.
Okay.
Saturday. Oh, yeah, Sunday's tough.
Yeah, Sundays. All right.
I just thought of something. It's a question for Tom Twyford, actually. When those oysters begin to develop on that string and the weight becomes more and more, what's the effect on the, because I don't think they're attached to the stringers. I think they were attached to the planks that go across. So I'd like to know.
I could have sworn he said they were attached to a structural member, like a stringer.
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, it showed that bolt through.
Okay.
Yeah, the
So
one to the
just
planks.
would like to know what that weight, as that weight increases, have they had any issues with that?
Yeah.
I've talked to some people in the community about it, that seems to be a big concern.
That's a good one.
Also, one thing I failed to mention is we would ideally need to find locations in Tequesta to place the strung up oyster shells. So if you have any friends or family that own waterfront properties, maybe see if you can find some volunteers. If not, we'll put something on social media and ask for volunteers. But
Yeah.
it'd be great to not just string them, but actually, string them and then put them right up here.
Use, yeah.
And then also, I know Tom was looking for people to become champions. So that he doesn't have to come up every time there's an installation. So if you think of anybody or any of you yourselves would want to be that person that could kind of help install them, that'd be great. I personally volunteered that I would take the shells from 1000 North and Lucky Shuck and places. If he ever has a need for it, I'll drive him down there. So if you guys want to find someone to volunteer to string them, that'd be great.
A volunteer on the education, not the installation.
Is this something that we could involve the I forgot their name, the environmental group at Jupiter High School.
That would be great.
Absolutely.
Because they live on year after year with different students as they progress through the system, but they don't seem to ever go away. So there might be a group of younger people that can help with some of the work and be involved in all of that, and learn what it all means educationally and so forth for the water quality.
Great idea. Tom and I did talk a little bit about that, and he's open to that. So I will reach out to the Jupiter High group and see if they can become a partner, and it could maybe be a continual, constant project that we always work with them on.
That would be great.
Okay. Moving right along. So this is, let's see. Okay, so the initiatives, I think we spoke about all of these things at one point or another, but what you have here is a paper with up to 8 options. This is basically a ranking of what you feel is the most important, and then second most important. Most important gets an A, second most gets a B, and you're only allowed to have 2 A's and 2 B's. And this was not, I guess this is the way that council prioritizes some things when they meet, so seems like it is pretty good. I had mentioned before the meeting started, a few of these are kind of related, like number 3 and number 7 and 6. 6 may be a little bit different because it's more of just the education aspect of it. But 3 and 7 are the actual, nuts and bolts of doing it, basically, in my mind anyway. So I think that if it'd be possible for if this is agreeable, to motion to combine 3 and 7 into one. Does that make sense? Because we only get 2 A's and 2 B's, right?
Right.
And 3 and 7 seem to be very much related. Plus the Oyster habitat.
3 and 6.
3 and 6.
No, 6 is related as well, but it's a different, it's more on the education side, whereas 3 and 7 are more on, I say the nuts and bolts, like you're actually doing something to the program, not, maybe I'm not explaining it very well.
I guess what I get the action-oriented
Action versus education,
do something. But are we considering the oyster habitat and the living shorelines to be the same thing?
I think they're related enough to, put them into one category or one bullet. I don't know. That's just my thought. We don't have to do it. We can just move along with this. But if that sounds reasonable, you could always motion it. If not.
In regard to number 3,
Mm-hmm.
didn't we identify some things for incentives, and maybe even go so far as having it looked at by the building department? Am I wrong or right? I thought we said, okay, we like this living shoreline thing, we really need a demonstration project. Is this a project or is it just a program of education? It's not really clear the way
It sounds like right now it's a request for budget.
It's a request for budget. So that, Tom, that would be pretty similar to the current tree planting incentive program we're offering, right? So we have a tree incentive program where people can get up to $400 per shade tree, and it just got rolled out recently. It's kind of a slow rollout, but we thought, Jeremy Allen and I thought that we could possibly use that as kind of a basis to do a similar thing with mangroves in the next budget year. So we would ask for let's say up to $10,000 or 15 or whatever the council is comfortable approving, that we would then give out on kind of a first come first served basis to whoever wants to install mangroves on their property.
About how much are the mangroves when you purchase them from whomever, Mang or what?
I do not know that.
Do you think Allison would know?
How much mangroves cost?
No. It's worth a shot.
Water person, not a plant person.
Okay.
Also, something in regarding number 3 to come up with the incentives. So say, it's a monetary incentive and somebody that lives along the water says yes and utilizes that incentive. But are we doing preliminary evaluations to make sure that a mangrove can be sustainable there? Because we've learned through a lot of our education that the water's too deep. So
We would create, if we did that incentive program, we would create very specific criteria for what needs to be done prior to, giving approval for it. So on the tree program, we have it's probably too complicated, but it's got a list of like what type of trees you can use, where you can plant them,
okay.
where you have to buy them from.
Is the incentive that you just described, is that the incentive, or is that just an example of the type of incentive we could do? Like, am I voting to give rich people money to plant? That's what I want to know.
That's
For the betterment of the environment, yes.
That's an interesting dynamic that you'd have to factor in for sure.
Gotcha.
'Cause there's no way that you can say provide us, your net worth before we approve it, right? So
Well, I mean, it's like, I'm assuming you're not giving people mangroves to plant on their non-seaside locations, correct?
correct.
On number 3, if I look at the two things, this says it's wanting to facilitate. It says planting of mangroves and engineered structures. It seems to me that the only thing that Tequesta could possibly afford would be the planting of mangroves. And I'm wondering if engineered structures
Maybe it's those.
throws a curveball into
Yeah.
what people are thinking. Is that a seawall? Or we
No.
you know?
Tom, I think it's that, how I interpreted it, Jay, is that the young guys that came in and they discussed what they came up with, those
Honeycomb.
hexagon. And then also we were,
Reef arches.
thank you.
Yes.
Arches. And then what the other one was the rocks, right? Also doing the rocks. So I think that's what, I would assume that's what they are offering, are those two options, not building someone's seawall, right?
No.
But that's, I mean, it's gotta be worded
How about
specifically.
alternative engineered
Alternative.
structures?
Sure.
Would that be a better?
Well, similar to the plant a tree program where there's a specific list of trees that qualify for the rebate, there would be probably a list of engineered or alternative engineered structures, I would imagine.
But are we all on the same pages about those things that we showed by those startup companies and the young men that came and spoke to us? Is that what we're talking about when we say engineered structures?
Yes, that, and
agree.
I remember on one of them, there was something that surrounded the pilings
Yes,
that also promoted oyster growth.
yes, I remember that too.
Yeah, so that sort of thing, that's what
What
I
about
took.
a non-engineered structure such as rocks and riprap?
I think maybe
Yeah.
we could add by companies that have presented to the EAC, that way it covers everybody that's come in, because I think we're all on the same page, that it's these alternative, as you said,
Yeah.
ideas. If you want to add that.
I think this might have been Brad's item.
Yeah, it was.
So I think it's up to him. You want to use alternative engineered
Sure.
structure?
Yeah.
But
But it,
I know the
Organic
riprap
and
is,
engineered
riprap is not
structures.
cheap.
yeah, that's,
And it's probably involves the work of an engineer, but it's not really an engineered structure, is it?
Organic.
Well, I think the whole idea behind a living shoreline is there's going to be an engineer involved. You know, you can't just qualify for a mangrove tree rebate and then just kind of plant it and stick it in the back of your yard or back of your house.
Right.
And I don't think the rebate, it would qualify anyway if you did. You know what I mean? And the same thing goes for alternative engineered structures. And again, like I said, it's going to be for specific things. You know, but the way it's written, does seem kind of vague. But I think in practice, it will be very specific.
Can I explain something?
Please.
So you'll see that item number 6 was one of mine. And the reason I made this, I had spoken to, I think, Jay about it, or somebody about it, one time somewhere. But the reason I did this was, it's basically an educational concept, as opposed to an uphill, this is me talking and thinking, as opposed to a potentially uphill battle to get a lot of money from the village council to have a demonstration project for living shoreline. My thought was, why don't we find one that someone did, I don't care if it's in Miami or Jupiter, and, you know, get a videographer, you know, make it a nice production, and then that could be on the website, etc., and help people see that, you know, here's the steps and here's how it works and what, you know, thing. In other words, it's a soft cost issue as opposed to a hard cost that could be very expensive.
And as part of the education program, a piece of this shoreline project proposals, that's a very good educational piece of it.
Have you looked on YouTube to see if there's any videos that are already there that we wouldn't have to pay anyone to make? That are sufficient?
That's a good idea. I had not gone that far.
I did a quick search and I found a few. I didn't know exactly what you're looking for. There's some that show like installations. There's some that show afters, but the afters don't look exactly probably what you're thinking. There's several that look like they're more North Florida than South Florida, but I'm sure you could look around. Maybe we could post one of those and then that's free.
Yeah. So, you know, if we found one that's built, there's no way for us to video the steps it took to build it, design it, and all this other stuff. So if it's on YouTube, then maybe we don't do, that's just not necessary. If we could patch them together and put them on the website.
Right, maybe do a before video and an after video or something.
Yeah, yeah.
If there are, I'm just saying because there's, you know, everything's on the internet.
And that item could just be like to create a campaign of awareness of living shorelines. It doesn't have to be a video. It could be just kind of hitting people in smoke signals and in our social media and the website and flooding them with information about it. Also, one thing to factor in too is numbers 6 and 7 really don't require a budget. So the other 5, you're all kind of asking for money. The other 2 are kind of educational. So you could always kind of roll those out and say, hey, you know, these are, when it comes for the ask for money, these are our priorities. And then the other 2 are things that we really, really support and want to do, but they don't really cost any money.
Is 7 not asking us to find a location where there will be a project done?
For the horse.
It is, but it won't cost any money. So yeah, Russ, unfortunately you missed.
Yeah, I missed the, okay, so somebody's gonna like do a project for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
so it's the Palm Beach Fishing Club,
Okay.
and they string recycled oysters from restaurants on a string, and you just go put them on people's docks, and then
You just gotta find a location, they're gonna install a thing.
so you find a location, and then we'll actually have the EAC would have an event where we actually have people come out and string the oysters up. So it's
Fantastic.
yeah.
That seems easy. I have a question about, so there's a write-in line here. I don't fully think I have enough information to suggest this completely, but I know, I think I emailed a few months back, what was it, USAT, yeah, the USAT Today article that had the map that showed us that Tequesta drinking water has the fluoro whatever stuff.
I'm glad you brought that
PFAS.
up.
And for my money, helping the village, like I don't know if there's anything bigger than filtering
Totally agree.
the drinking water.
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
Well, that's a good one to add, but the
Number 8.
Allison had done a report a month or two ago that was pretty comprehensive, but they stated in that report that they knew that they had the contamination.
I missed it.
But I don't know, what I don't know is, where is that? I know that the EAP says by this date you gotta have
Right.
something done, but I don't know where we are and how far we're moving at this point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
Help us.
Yeah, so it's actually very, not that, I mean, it just would take a long time to explain all of it, but in summary, our water plant pulls from two different aquifers, the surficial aquifer and the Floridan aquifer. PFAS has not been found in the Floridan aquifer, so that one's safe, so that's our RO plant. Even if it was found in there, the RO plant does remove it from the drinking water stream. It does produce a reject stream, which right now goes out to the intercoastal beneath the bridge that was just replaced. And but we don't have to worry about that right now because it's only in the surficial aquifer. Right now, the way that we treat the surficial aquifer is through a filter plant, and that filter plant does not remove PFAS. So that water goes straight through the filters. The PFAS is still there. It's combined with the RO permeate, and that's what gets sent out to the distribution system. And right now, the two substances or analytes that are in the PFAS regulation that are going to be regulated, right now it's in 2029, but they're looking at pushing it to 2031, is PFOS and PFOA. Our PFOA concentration in our finished water is about 3.4 nanograms per liter. The limit is 4. And then the PFOS is, don't quote me on this, but I think 8.6. It's about double what the MCL will be in a couple of years. And so we have a big project going on right now with Kimley Horn to develop a master plan to figure out how we're going to address that in our finished water. There's a couple of different routes that we can go, so we just have to take a holistic approach to looking at whether we maintain the surficial aquifer supply that has the PFAS in it and try to figure out how to remove the PFAS from the drinking water stream. But then you're going to have a waste, whether that be a material waste through ion exchange where you're going to have a resin that you have to dispose of, or if we go to a membrane treatment option for the surficial aquifer, but then it would be in that reject stream. And where would we put that stream? Would we just be putting it back into the environment through the outfall, or would we have to get a deep injection well that would be putting it below any drinking water aquifer? There's a couple of different routes we can go. So we're doing that master plan. The other option that we have is to go full RO, to completely stop the dependence on the surficial aquifer and only depend on the Floridan aquifer. It does reduce some of your redundancy in your raw water supply, but we could build that redundancy through additional wells. So there's a lot of different moving parts that go into that decision, and it's a pretty big decision that has to be funded, and millions and millions of dollars for treatment changes depending on which option we choose. So it's important for us to choose the most cost-effective option where we're implementing treatment changes that are going to last us a long time to make sure that investment's worth it now. So it's a very loaded answer, but we are looking at it when it comes to the remediation in the environment. It's kind of hard for utilities to take that on. I know that, I think it's the city of Stewart, I believe, or Martin County, they're currently implementing treatment to remove the PFAS from the water stream. They use resin, but then the resin does have to be destroyed. There's a lot of new up and coming technology on the destruction of PFAS, because right now the resin, they take it and they burn it, and they have to burn it to a high enough temperature to destroy those bonds, and they're really, really strong bonds, so it's hard to do. And the other difficult part about PFAS is this is just two compounds that we're looking at. There were some other ones that were regulated, but they're drawing back those regulations. But then there is hundreds of PFAS compounds that they haven't even explored yet. And so it's down the future, they may start looking at those, but the problem is you really have to look at it on the production side. These chemicals, the reason why they're in the environment is because they were produced back in the early 1900s, and they've been continuing to be produced. Nobody was watching them, and every time one was regulated, all they did was add a fluoride compound onto the end of the chain and made a new compound. So that's why there's so many out there, is because as soon as they regulated one, they were just making the next. So it's a tricky subject, and it's hard when you start talking about the remediation in the environment. And I don't even know, I'm sure there's research done out there about different PFAS levels that are actually in the environment and not just in drinking water. I'm just familiar with the ones in drinking water. But it's a very loaded question.
So you currently have the funding you need to do the research to make the decision?
Correct. We issued a PO to Kimley Horn in the amount of, it was around $120,000 for this master plan. And so they're looking at all of those options of the different treatment techniques and the impacts of those, because it's not just picking the cheapest, fastest option. It's also weighing the regulatory impacts of those, because if we change our treatment technique, it triggers a whole bunch of regulatory things down the road that we'd have to start doing with lead and copper sampling and our corrosion control and just a whole can of worms. So whatever you decide, we have to make sure we've covered all of our bases and are solid with that decision.
And do you know like when that decision will eventually be made, like a rough estimate on that?
I think the timeline for the project was 6 to 8 months for that master plan, for that report to come out. We are trying to fast track that as soon as possible. The consultant knows that it's important. Right now we're in the data collection phase, so we're getting all of our chemical feed information, all of our production data, all of our demand data, so how much water the consumers are taking, all of our well data, how much we'll have to invest to maintain the current system. So what upgrades are needed now, even if we stayed on track with what we're doing. So they're getting all of that data, and then we'll have a meeting to review that data and decide what they're going to be looking at, and then they'll start doing their cost benefit analysis.
And then, in theory, then sometime towards the end of next fiscal year, you'd be making that decision, and then maybe needing funding at that point.
Correct. And right now we have, in our capital plan, we had been planning for this large treatment change. And so we are looking at various options for funding. That right now in our state, there is options for PFAS funding through SRF loans, which we've already have some SRF loans, but that's for our distribution projects. And we do have one for the water plant as well, but that project's about to kick off. We also did look at some of our current projects and reducing the scope of those projects to make sure we're not expending funds now on a treatment technique that we may be going away from in the future. So making sure we're making the best fiscally responsible decisions now.
Are you done, Rick?
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I? I lost my train of thought. Is it safe for us to assume that you and others in the water industry, municipal water industry, safe for us to assume that you assume EPA and others are going to come up with grant funding for this catastrophic cost?
So that's where there is a lot of, so the SRF funding was trying to kind of offset that. There was a large pushback from the utility industry when these first came out because they were unfunded mandates. There wasn't a lot of funding available for PFAS remediation or transition. We do also have a settlement that we're working through with 3M DuPont and then BASF and Tyco. So we will get funding from those settlements as well. It's just not a lot. The hard thing that it comes down to for us is a lot of those loans or grants are based on your average income of the population that you serve, and we're not below the median. So that's what makes it a little bit harder to get those. But to my knowledge, there's not a lot of grants out there specific to PFAS. We could kind of leverage the fact that we're transitioning from the surficial aquifer, if we do go down that route, to the Florida aquifer, which would help with saltwater intrusion and some other environmental factors. So we could kind of leverage the environmental impact of our decision, and that Kimley Horn is also looking at what that would look like and different ways that we can kind of show what we're doing and what we're changing, not just from the PFAS standpoint, but also from an environmental standpoint.
Do we know which surficial wells, or is it all of the above, or what? Do we know which ones?
So all of them do have PFAS. They're just at different levels. And so that testing was done back in, I believe, the end of 2023, early 2024 on the wells. And then we just today conducted retesting of all of the wells because we found out that through our settlement, if we get these testing results and invoicing done by December 31st, we can submit those for reimbursement through the settlement. So we went ahead and resampled all of the wells to have more up-to-date concentrations of PFAS in the wells. So hopefully we'll have that data soon. But it is in all of the wells. Some are just higher than others. Operationally, we are looking at trying to use the wells that have less PFAS in them. But it's easy to say that, but then the well that has less PFAS only produces 80 gallons per minute compared to the one that produces more, that produces 500 gallons per minute. So it's kind of a balancing act with our water demand and what we're able to produce. But we are looking at that. That's one of the things that Kimley Horn is tasked with is operational matrices now to reduce the amount of PFAS in our finished water.
Is it tough to get an additional Floridan permits for future expansion of RO?
So we do have one Floridan well that's permitted right now that's not constructed. The problem is right now the treatment capacity. We have 3 RO trains that produce 3.6 million gallons a day. And about 1 well feeds each train. So we already have 4 wells. So we don't really need wells right now because we can only produce a certain amount of water anyways. If we did transition to full RO, we would have to drill more wells, especially for redundancy in case we have to take some out. But the way that we balance our water, the RO water, the reason we have to have the surficial water is because it's very corrosive. It's void of all minerals and it wants stuff in it. And so the surficial aquifer provides those minerals and balances the water and makes it non-corrosive. So if we start increasing our RO production and decreasing our surficial production, you start getting corrosive water. So we have to make sure we're balancing the chemistry of the water. And so it's a little bit harder to depend more on the Floridan aquifer right now. But if we make that full transition, we would have to add post-treatment stabilization with some form of like calcium feed into the water to make sure it's not corrosive.
So while I have you here to tap your expertise and knowledge, I want to shift it just a wee bit. Is it a fact that with the current technology that we have, are we able to remove all the microplastics that may be in the untreated water stream?
To my knowledge, we haven't done any testing for microplastics in the water. If there were microplastics in the water, and this is just to my knowledge, I haven't seen a lot of research on it, the RO plant will remove the microplastics, and this is to my knowledge, so don't hold this against me, but it will. The filter plant will not.
Interesting.
Okay. If you have any trouble with the PFAS that have to be shipped, just take it to the DuPont headquarters. Parking lot.
Yeah, just
That's
dump it
where
there.
it came from originally.
Quick question while we have your resourceful information. I saw in your report in the workshop that 2 other items showed up as contaminants, methane and TOC. What is TOC?
So no, that's actually at one of our wells, well 26. Right now we're having issues with air entrainment. And so the water from the surficial aquifer has a lot of iron in it. And when that iron oxidizes, it's hard. That's why we have the filter plants to remove the iron. But when you have air entrainment in a well, it produces a lot of iron to the point where we are not able to treat it at the plant. So that well's been out of service for a long time. And we couldn't find the reason for the air entrainment. It's not oxygen. So we did an ORP test. It's not oxygen. So we went in and did a test on the gas, and it came back that it was methane and had high levels of TOC in it. We have not been running that well to the plant, but they believe that it is a bacteria that feeds off of methane and gives off methane. I don't know the whole chemistry behind all of it, but that's what they think it is. Our plan is to go in and do a extensive chlorination on the well to kill any bacteria, and then do what we call reverse air, where we pump a lot of air into the well and take all that dirt and the dead bacteria out, so there's nothing for it to feed on in the future. And then hopefully the well will not have air entrainment anymore.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yes, but that is not in the finished water.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
let me
you.
talk this out way. Okay. Very articulate.
All right, so anyone have more discussion on any of these items?
So are we voting on these now? Or at
Yes.
the end of, now, during this session?
Yeah.
Okay,
And this is, we're kind of a quasi workshop,
okay.
so it's a little less regimented with regard to Robert's Rules of Order. So we can talk amongst ourselves, we can discuss any of these, or you can just put your grades down.
Let me tell you about number 5. So recently, about a month ago, Tequesta Pines had a board meeting. And it came to our attention that, you know, we have one entrance on Seabrook Road and one on Riverside Drive. And Seabrook Road is very popular for people that like to walk. They walk up and down, back and forth. Russ probably sees them every day like I do. But we started getting complaints about the fact that people, both our residents and people that don't reside in Tequesta Pines, they are picking up their dog's waste with the bag, and then they're tying or twisting the bag, whatever, and then they're just leaving it in the swale where the trees are, or they're tossing it into the hedgerows as if they're just going to magically disappear.
Or down the storm drain.
And we, you know, and people were, you know, particularly our residents were complaining about it. And so I got assigned the task of contacting the village to see if there was anything that could be done. And it turns out that Doug Chambers, the Director of Public Works, he has an ongoing program where he's putting these dog stations up in certain areas where I assume, I'm not positive, but there might be lots of foot traffic for walking the dogs and stuff. And so I called him, not knowing that he had been doing that. And he said, oh yeah, sure, no problem. I'll order 2 and we'll put one on one side of the street in front of Tequesta Pines and one on the other. And then he went on to tell me, you know, we pick them, I'm going to fake this, I can't remember. He says, we pick it up, we pick up the garbage canisters that are part of the package. We pick them up on something like Tuesdays and Thursdays of every week or something like that. But he's got a program that and you know, the downside of this stuff is that, you know, it's not good for the environment. I mean, it's got all kind of disease and bacteria and everything in it. And so I just thought, since it was recently put into my mind, I thought maybe we should make sure that they're strategically placed somewhere throughout the village. And I saw Michelle nodding her head. Maybe they have some in the Tequesta Country Club. I don't know.
I know of one.
But, you know, I'm sure
down to Tequesta Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, several of them.
they do, okay. And then, but maybe there's none on Old Dixie or something. You know, I don't know. But that's why I put it here. And maybe, on the other hand, maybe every neighborhood is covered. I don't know.
So does he have budget currently to pay for these stations?
Well, he told me he was going to order 2 for me. I looked online and they're about $400 a pop, not counting the labor to put them in. So I guess, you know, in most cities, $400 is like, you know, the cost of you and me going in and get a cup of coffee somewhere. I mean, it's not, it's a drop in the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
But if the program already exists and it just requires calling Public Works to request one for an area that's in need of it.
Or make sure they have a sufficient budget to fulfill the other populated areas.
Yeah.
I can tell you that there's a lot of dog walkers up and down Tequesta Drive. I see them quite often. They use those receptacles a
Oh,
lot.
good, that's
Yeah.
good.
I definitely see the value in it.
Okay, so we're now,
So it seems like some of these, we definitely are for, but they're not budget request related. All right?
Number 4?
number 6 and 7 aren't budget items.
No, number 4 is definite budget item.
So you can only.
Yeah,
The dog waste station wouldn't be a budget request that was born from us. It would
Well, let's
be
say,
Public Works.
let's say that the council ends up in their strategic planning meetings talking about this, just for talking purposes. Let's say that's what they do. And then they may say to the Director of Public Works in such a meeting, okay, what areas do you not do this in? And he might say, well, we don't have any on Old Dixie Highway, or something like that. Or we don't have anything on Village Boulevard. And they might say, well, why don't you do that in the upcoming budget? And then theoretically, the whole village is probably covered, and then all he has to do is pick up the waste on a schedule, and eventually these garbage things will rust and so on and so forth, and they have to be replaced. But that's years down the road. So, you know, it's not a big expense for them, depending on how big or small the areas that don't have anything end up being.
Yeah.
Is it fair to lump our voting into two categories of budget-related items and non-budget? Because I feel like I'm gonna,
Well, I think in general, we're for all of these,
but we have to rank them. It's just-
but the ranking, I think, would be most important for the budget required or budget related.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Strategic planning it's really just about the budget itself, correct? So if we're voting on, for instance, if we say number 6, we can just find YouTube videos and it's free,
Yeah.
it would be a wasted vote.
Yep. Yeah.
And 7. if we
And really
find
7
that-
as well.
It's free, a free
That's what I'm
program
saying,
as
so
well,
to me,
right?
those are Cs,
Oh,
they're
Cs,
important,
So I'm just
but,
gonna put a little bracket and put free.
yeah, on to educate, free and educational. Okay.
But I guess you gotta give everything as a letter, right? So some of the things that don't cost any money, like a
Okay.
no-brainer YouTube, maybe that's a C.
So I'm putting Cs on the free and educationals. So I can wait. The other ones.
And when you're done, please give them to me so we can start tabulating.
Okay. You want us to hurry up?
No rush. No, take your time.
Yeah, I did C's to things that I feel will be done anyway.
Yeah, I have mine done, Jay, but I tell you, it's a little bit of a Pandora's box bringing this up. But it kind of goes back to Russ's challenge earlier about the write-in and about the water quality. It is, just using this example about water quality can obviously lead to potential health issues, right, with our
Drinking
residents.
water, yeah.
Is that in the scope of the environmental committee?
I think so. I mean,
About the environment.
so there's two things. I mean,
It's important. It's important. I'm just trying to understand it. Because I think there are many other things that potentially could be
Drinking
Drug
water
into
is
this,
absolutely
the
an
health scope.
environmental issue.
So, I mean, there's two things. I mean, there's obviously a strategic planning ask for budget, but there is also environmental committee support for key issues, right? So the PFAS issue, if you all think that that is the number one environmental issue that the council should focus on, you can put that as A. And I hate to, spoiler alert, Jill put that as an A, as a write-in. So if you want to, you can do that. And when Brad goes and presents to council, he'll say, you know, hey, we've got 4 or 5 key initiatives. You know, the EAC really wants you to support everything that Allison and the water utilities is doing related to PFAS.
My thought is quality of water should be everybody's concern. I mean, I want to be able to put my glass under the sink and just be able to drink that water. It's a luxury that some places don't have, and I think that we could easily, I'll speak for myself, easily get behind doing whatever it takes for our village to have that. It's a huge bonus, and I think it's number one in my book.
Yeah, it's
I could drop everything else on there.
human health.
Yes, Yeah.
So,
But the logic train goes like this, if I can just be real quick. So, knowingly or unknowingly, mankind created things that had these bad things in them that entered the environment.
Right.
And now, because of that, it's entering our bodies and affecting potentially human health. So the original problem was that it just invaded the environment. Okay, so it is an environmental issue. Its cause originates with an environmental issue. And maybe DuPont didn't really know that happened, or but at this point it's irrelevant except for liability purposes. But it originally environmental.
so can I follow the logic train a little further? 'Cause here's where my mind went. If what you guys say is the environmental focus, right? It should include water and health-related items. Then I think there's a whole host of other things that are out there that should be perhaps prioritized way above many of the things we currently have on our list today. I'll tell you a quick little personal story. I'll make it very quick. A very, very close friend of mine for over 30 years, he just had his birthday a couple weeks ago, and I reached out to him and, happy birthday. He lives in Texas, haven't seen him in a while. He told me he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, but he didn't want any sympathy. He didn't want me to tell anybody. It was kind of a very personal thing for him. And I said, wow, that's interesting. I don't know anything about that disease. I'm going to study it a little bit. I happen to take a long cross-country drive. And so I had like 19 hours in the car to listen to all different types of material. And I learned about this brand new study that came out just months ago about tying Parkinson's disease. 89% of Parkinson's is man-made. And many of them come from these chemicals that we're talking about here. And one of the interesting studies they quoted was a study that just came out in May of this year about how living in the proximity of golf courses can escalate your Parkinson's, potential Parkinson's, beyond any other correlative topic. And they talked about the insecticides and pesticides that are used continually. And so I'm bringing this up because, again, we've got golf courses in and around our community, and we got people that live in proximity to these. These could be a huge issue and topic for us to discuss, debate. I'm sure it's going to, create a lot of emotion, a lot of different ways. But it was very interesting and eye-opening to me, and that's just something I learned since our last visit together. And it all came from just trying to understand what my friend was going through.
So let me just say this. So I think I like the way you're thinking. When I was in grad school, I got an environmental philosophy certificate as part of my degree. And in one of the classes, one of the things that we were learning was not to separate the nature side of things from the human side of things, right? So if you think nature is separate from humanity, then that's part of the problem that creates environmental issues, right? And so if you see humans as natural, right, and you see things that are bad for nature are also bad for humans, that's a better way to look at it.
Yeah, I like it.
And to your point, I 100% agree. There are issues like that. I don't think it affects these items today. This is for our 2026 strategic year. That's an issue that let's get into that during the 2026 and gather information and go for it, because there's others as well. But to both of your points, what's in our environment is affecting us, and it's not natural. And
But the things you're mentioning those are water quality issues too.
mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right, so those are all things that are affecting water quality,
Yeah.
both in terms of drinking water, but also the stuff that's affecting the drinking water is also affecting the water quality of the natural.
Right. And it just wasn't about you're contracting it through water. There are many other means of contracting it, but water is definitely a common thing there. Anyway, I think that if this is opening up, and I don't necessarily disagree, if it's opening up the scope of what we should be debating, I think it's really going to challenge us next year to, create an agenda items that perhaps even hit a little closer to home.
Agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
You know, Russ may remember this, but years ago when EAC was first created, it came up, you know, what are they doing on Tequesta Country Club golf course, you know? And so I got tasked with contacting the golf course and the country club itself. They never even responded. You could leave them a phone message, no callback, no response to email, nothing. So
It's hard.
maybe we need to check governmental documents, assuming they have to report what they're doing to some government. Maybe the thing to do is track down what that data is that they're submitting to that government. They're not submitting it to Tequesta as far as I know.
No, they won't speak about
All the
it.
golf courses in the state of Florida and all that going into our water.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Take my hand, thank you.
This might take a bit to add up.
By the chair.
Do you guys want to have us just calculate them and then provide you the results after the meeting, or do you want to stick around and wait?
How long is it gonna take?
How long is it gonna take?
Meg,
You got that. I'm not gonna argue with anyone when they're done, so I feel good not knowing later.
All right. Well,
did you finally break down and buy a computer?
no, it finally died on me.
Oh,
So
it did?
I was forced. Yeah.
Good job. And this is clips on
I
the
was
side.
telling Michelle, this thing, my old one died, and I dropped my phone in the ocean. So completely dark, technology-wise. So that's about it. So any other agenda items, future agenda items, other matters? No? Okay. Then someone could make a motion to,
You know, let me say this, two things. PFAS are, many residents of Tequesta may not be aware of that subject matter at all. But when they do become aware, and they will sooner or later become aware, we might, I don't know what we should do, but I mean, if we were to start putting stuff, a public service announcement of some kind that was, you know, say in smoke signals, well, that's like, you know, adding fuel to the fire, because then they'll start panicking and come in here with pitchforks and torches at the council meeting threatening to hang somebody. But it seems, it behooves people in government to always be one step ahead of the wave, because, for example, the living shoreline ordinance that Tequesta adopted, okay, I think we all agree that's a good thing, right? But trust me, one of these days, a property owner is going to go off the deep end when he sees, okay, I've got to jump this hurdle and that hurdle and this hurdle in order to be able to have just an everyday seawall. And, you know, he or she might be able to stir up other property owners, and it's good to be ahead of the curves. In other words, telling the public the value and the benefits of living shorelines well before a calamity occurs with, you know, property owners that are, you know, going off the deep end over things. So it's just something to always think about. So I'm not saying PFAS may not be the proper subject, because we don't want to scare the bejesus out of people, but we need to be thinking proactively so that we're ready and ahead of the thing when the wave of concern finally hits this building.
yeah, so specifically with regard to the living shoreline, yeah, that's the reason we had last or this past March, we had the educational seminar. And I think it was published in Smoke Signals once, maybe twice.
Right.
So, you know, if there's something in addition to that from an education standpoint,
That's why.
or just keep doing it.
Yeah, keep doing that, but that's why I'm thinking about videos. And I'll
Yeah.
look at YouTube because, you know, particularly the younger generation, they absorb information through video, whereas they might not when they're reading a piece of paper.
So the results of the current testing, when will those be
Sure.
available?
Oh, test.
Allison, I'm sorry.
Do I have to walk up there?
No.
Before the end of the year, we had to rush the results, so we got them in time for the settlement claim, so they'll be ready before the end of the year.
Okay.
When do we have access to that?
As soon as they come through, I can put some information together. I could send you just the report, but it's easier to digest if I put something together for you, kind of
Right.
a perspective on what they were before and what they are now.
Yeah.
Talking like June timeframe, you're anticipating the results?
January, we could have something pulled together for the results of the recent testing. The report, the master plan, that'll probably be around June, July, yes.
Okay.
But the well testing can probably be pulled together by January.
That would be outstanding if, you know, it doesn't have to be a big formal presentation, but just, you know, give us an idea of the results of those tests. Appreciate it. And is that something that would be appropriate to, obviously you'll share it with council, but should that be, how should I put it? Common information, in other words, should the citizens of Tequesta, or do they have access to those results?
So we don't have like an online database where we keep results at. The well field testing data is not required to be publicized to the public, and I think it also may be misleading because the concentrations will be higher than what's in the finished water, so some people it may kind of spark some concern with some people, even though it shouldn't in some situations. But we are required to put our finished water testing on our water quality report that's published every year.
Okay.
That's published by, I believe it's by July 1st of every year for the prior year, is when we're required to publish it and then report it to
I've seen
the Department
those.
of Health.
Yeah, I think I've seen those too. Okay.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Well,
Oh, sorry. Oh.
Got the results, folks. Number 1,
Envelope, please.
we have number 2, budget to expand tree and non-tree landscaping to Tequesta streetscapes. Number 2, budget to establish a living shoreline program that provides incentives. And in a tie at number 3, we have the Amnesty Day tied with PFAS. So you could kind of just pick a top 3 priorities to pitch to council, and then of course you can kind of mention your secondary ones. Number 1, the stormwater issue finished 1 point behind the number 3. So there's kind of a top 5.
What was the
Wait, what?
second item that tied for number 3?
Amnesty Day.
Amnesty Day.
Amnesty Day and a write-in for PFAS.
Okay.
So those were tied for 3, and then the fifth one would have been number 1. Right, so if there's 2 that are tied for 3, then there's a 5th place. Do you not?
I'm a little slow today, maybe.
Just say what they are.
If there's 2 that are 3, then there's no 4th place. It just jumps to 5th place, right?
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sorry.
It's a little melted in there today.
So then, just to make sure we're all clear, tree and non-tree was number 1, right? Living shoreline number 2.
Yep.
Tie for number 3, amnesty and PFAS.
Yep.
And so that would make it number 5, stormwater drain sites.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Allison, I have a question for you.
It's